They're all a paper. Me and Margaret were like a paper. Yeah, they wanted 800. I kind of took us 1,600. So we were like, what do we do? We're like, look at all candy stuff in there. It's just like $70 to get a bunch of candy there. I was like, you know what? I got 10 pounds of butter in my face. It was very long. And of course, she didn't start running like that. So when water goes on sale, I buy it. Butter is not supporting. Yeah. Yeah. I know. Oh, they yell at us. Sorry. Oh.
All right, everybody.
Yes, I'm just frugal. If I see something go on sale.
If you can take a seat, we're going to get started at 7:02. Thanks so much for those who made it here on time, and we will absolutely forgive anyone who drifts in because they are perhaps experiencing parenting pressures tonight. So welcome, everybody. My name is Margaret Watt. I'm from Positive Directions, the Center for Prevention and Counseling. We're a nonprofit behavioral health organization literally right across the river in Raleigh. I'm the prevention director there, where I lead our community-based efforts to address mental health and substance use upstream, through gathering data and leading community work to educate people, make environmental changes. You'll hear from our clinical director in a few minutes as well, because we also have an outpatient clinic. So that's who we are. Right here in Westport, one of the things I have the pleasure of doing is leading the Westport Prevention Coalition. We have resources from both Positive Directions and the coalition over there. Grab anything and get involved in this work, because this is how we, it takes a village to make our community healthier, and we need more people who are interested in helping our kids make healthy choices. I'm also going to just other background on me. I direct a statewide young adult care support project we have called the CT Support Group. You can find it at ctsupportgroup.org. If you have kids who are, especially teens or young adults, dealing with any kind of mental health or substance issues, point them in that direction. But most relevantly tonight, I'm here also as a parent. My kids are now both college age, 2 boys, one of whom was in special education all the way through. And so I think all of us here have experienced some of the challenges that we have brought you out tonight. And you'll have to get a chance to hear everyone's background in a second. But why are we here for this topic tonight? So just a few months ago in 2024, but not published until the spring of this year, the Surgeon General at the time, Vivek Murthy, took the rather extreme approach of putting out an advisory on parent mental health. And when they do Surgeon General advisories, it's to address what is considered an urgent public health problem. And so I think our whole country has been focused on the youth mental health crisis for so long. And if our youth are dealing with mental health crises, then they're bringing them home to us, and it affects all of us as parents, right? So one of the things in the Surgeon General's report was that 41% of parents say that most days they feel so stressed they cannot function. And that is twice the rate that non-parents report. So the report itself is back on that one of the resource tables we have. If you want to take a look, you can find it online. But they identified a variety of reasons for this. And the basic call to action was employers, communities, parents, we all have to band together to support our parents, because that's not a way to continue. So when Jennifer Keller from the library, who just walked out the door, contacted me to see what kind of program we could put together, we felt that this would be helpful. Thanks to the parents tonight who are here. I bet more parents are experiencing such pressures they can't get here, and this is being reported for them for the future. So our format tonight is going to be about 40 minutes of hearing from the panelists. We've got these amazing local mental health experts we will hear from. We'll have sort of moderated discussion, and then about 20 minutes open floor. By then you'll know what perspectives people have. We'll have a whole Q&A. That'll take us to about 8. And then we're all willing to stay until 8:30 and kind of in small groups if you want to talk to someone in depth, in a little group. If we want to stay in a large group, it will stop being recorded at around 7:40. Okay. So I'm now going to let my wonderful collaborators here start introducing themselves with Liz and go down the line. Reminder, Jen says, speak right into the microphone. And please tell us your personal and professional reasons for being here. Like, what are the perspectives you bring?
Good evening, I'm Liz. I'm a Fairfield U student. I'm going back to school for a master's in social work. And tonight I bring the perspective of being a mom of a high schooler and an eighth grader locally. And I was also a caregiver to my grandparents along with my mother. So it's the definition of being in the sandwich generation.
My name is Melanie DeLapp. I am the clinical director over, like Margaret said, whichever way, right down the road at Positive Directions. And I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. Specifically, I focus and not so much on the parent side, but a lot on the parent side. I work with kids and teens, specifically school refusal, school anxieties, OCD, and eating disorders. And yes, I make that face often. We will get into it a lot later, but the perspective that I bring to the panel tonight is that when a child is stressed, when a child is anxious, that is not an independent problem. The entire family is affected. The entire family has to reorganize to support the child. So a little bit about also the children's mental health crisis, but how much it really does affect the family system also.
My name is John Marquette. I'm a licensed professional counselor. I work for Causeway Collaborative, which is also an organization that has an office right up the road. We are a men's mental health agency, so we work with young men between the ages of 14 and 30, 35. It's kind of a harder floor, softer stone. We have been doing the work for, I think, going on 14, 15 years now. Our founder, Vince Benevento, identified that there was this issue with young men seeking supportive services where they were going and talking to a therapist for 45 minutes to an hour every week, every other week, and not much was getting done. So he created some, I guess, unique to us services, futures coaching, which is largely career and academic oriented, and then therapeutic mentorship, which is more health and wellness, independent living skills, and interpersonal relationships. So we offer individual therapy, those two services, and marriage and family therapy as well. I'm also a father. 5 and 1, 2 girls. They're awesome.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Blass. I am a clinical psychologist in private practice, right up the road here, probably further than Positive Directions. It's still walkable. I do neuropsych testing and therapy with children and adolescents, and I also do parent consults. I am also the consulting psychologist at Village Pediatrics, and I used to run the new parent group there until they sort of reorganized things. So I'm doing less of that. I am a mom of an 8th grader and a 5th grader here in town, and one has an IEP, an individualized education plan. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's a special ed plan designed specifically for his needs. And I have one with a Section 504 plan. So he has a diagnosis that allows him to get certain accommodations at school. And the reason that I'm here is basically because Margaret asked, and I'm an oldest daughter, overachiever, and let him think about so, you're right.
This is a longer spare time, Lindsay.
Yeah, right. So, and I will say also that, my husband was like, well, can I go to this thing with parenting pressure? But I was like, okay, so I'm going to be home at 5:45, but you have to be in the car to take our 8th grader to the meeting at the middle school. And I don't know what you're going to do with the 5th grader. So he should probably just come with you. So great. So we can talk about it all.
Hi, I'm Jen Benoit. I work for Kids in Crisis, which is a nonprofit agency. They have a number of different programs, which I'm happy to talk to you all about. But the part of their programming that I work for is I'm an outreach counselor at Staples High School. I don't know what direction that is or if you can walk. But, so I'm there, I'm an outreach counselor, I see students, I'm not there to take the place of the school counselors and psychologists, I'm there to support that. I'm able to be more readily available, so there are some students I see on a regular basis and some who come in for, a quick tune-up over something. I also taught special education at Greenwich High School for 38 years, so this is my, my second career. I've raised 3 kids, I have 5 grandchildren, I have parents, so, that's what I bring to the table. And I vote.
I'm so excited about her post. I told them one with another. So thanks, everyone. So you can see we've got lots of, whatever it is that brought you out here tonight, someone or multiple of us have things to share with you, and we'll want to have that opportunity at the end of the day for you to share back to us, right? But we're going to start. The first topic is literally just going to be from the time demands of parenting today, right? The work-life balance and the impossibility of it. So referring back to that Surgeon General's advisory that I mentioned, the data that was collected to produce that shows that both moms and dads are now spending more time, more work hours every week, and more primary children's care hours every week, both mom and the father. So overall, everyone's working more out of the house, in the house, not even including the amount of time you're just there with your child. We're talking about like direct interaction with the kid. It's a total recipe for burnout, right? So the Surgeon General's advisory pointed out that the increased time demands have come at the cost of quality time with one's partner, sleep, and parental leisure time, right? People are nodding. So, our goal tonight is going to be let's all acknowledge the reality and then also talk about what can you do about it. So just to start with the reality, I'm going to ask Liz, from your personal perspective, as a mom who's balancing working, studying also, you're in grad school, so studying and parenting and parent care and all of that, what emotions are moms feeling these days? For you?
Personally, I think we're feeling exhausted. And I think we're finding the parenting part, the relationship part, for me going to school and working, I'm finding that really rewarding. But I'm really struggling with all the extracurriculars. As a family, I think we try to balance it, but I think our community doesn't really allow us to take a moment. I think kids are being shuttled to and from sports, different activities. So I definitely feel exhausted.
I'm sure everybody can agree with that. Lindsay, could you add on to that sort of from the professional perspective and the parents who are attending the consults?
Yes, so, can you hear me? Okay. So a lot of, when I deal with parent consults, it's, as, Melanie was saying about the behavior or the emotional challenges of the child contributing to the family or the parents, and that's a lot of what we're dealing with. I think there's a lot of factors that go into why we are experiencing so much stress today. I think, you can sort of just take a look at what's going on in the news on any given moment of any given day. And there's going to be things that will probably cause a reaction. I think for mothers in particular, and I do know that there is a very conscious movement to change this, but there's the concept of the mental load. And I don't know if parents are familiar with that concept.
Visible women in the mental load.
Yes.
How to
Right. So all of the things that we, the constant lists that we have going in our minds as moms, oh, should we make that doctor appointment? Did we do this? Did we do that? Down to there's a pile of stuff on the kitchen island and there's 18 things in this pile and I have to make a decision about each little thing and where it needs to go. So, so that's another piece of it, I think. But I will say that, I also really want to say to the dads in Westport, I am very impressed with how much you are carrying fully of your own volition. So I just, this is not like dad fashion. The other thing that I find is, social media makes it so much easier to feel less than, feel like we're not doing enough, feel like we're not doing the right thing by our kids, feel like we are failing them in some way. And I think that's a huge piece of what can get in the way. So.
I think, I mean, I was so struck by the actual numbers of like how many more hours we're all putting into everything that we do with our kids and with our work. And it's like, where is that coming from? This fear of like, I'm not doing enough. We're doing more than any other generation, right?
Yeah.
I think it's a lonely place to be too, because that whole thing about like quality time with your spouse, like when?
Yeah. Speaking of social media, I actually read this quote today and I was like, this is exactly like what we're dealing with. The modern condition is mostly trying to do things on your own that people have historically achieved with a large support network and wondering why you're tired all the time. But yeah, that's what we're talking about. So,
Well, Lindsay, you alluded to dads, but I want to ask John to comment on how do you see dads struggling with work time demands? Is it the same or there's some differences?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's certainly the same, right? In the sense that it's exhausting being a parent, no matter which side of it you're on, right? In one way or another. The big thing for me, it's it's not mental load because that's kind of defined. But I mean, if I asked anyone in here, like, what are 2 or 3 words that describe what a man should be, what a dad should be? Protector, provider are typically the top 2 that come out, right? So the weight of that, I think, is like an unseen aspect of why a lot of dads that come in are struggling. That is, and I'll speak for myself, is something that's on my mind constantly. In the hospital, I remember sitting there and a switch flipping in my mind. I'm like, oh, I need to just never stop ever. And that's a heavy thing to carry as well when you want to be a present, loving, involved father on top of providing all of the things and never having to say no to the two little girls in my family. So it's heavy. It's heavy for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just, please hold the microphone closer and aim it at your face, so that's over.
Got it.
We really want to pick up what you're saying.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks. So let's talk about other things we can start to do just about managing the time, right? The time demands at this point. So not only as a marriage and family therapist, there are definitely not enough hours in the week to do everything we're all trying to do, but are there ways parents can change their patterns that would improve their own mental health as well as, or at least with their relationship with their partner and their kids?
Yes, definitely. Good. And not the best at microphone speaking, if you couldn't tell. Yes, so the long and short is that there aren't enough hours in the day. There are not enough hours in the week to get everything done. So don't. I know, groundbreaking stuff, right? But I call this the triaging effect, right? So what do hospitals do? People come in, they assess what is the most absolute, do we have to address this right now? That's what when I work with families, especially, we were just chatting about this prior to the panel, multiple kids in multiple activities, there has to be a triage system. Who goes where, when, what supports can we bring in? Because that's another thing, the data is showing the villages are getting smaller and smaller. And I think also people are a little bit afraid to ask for help nowadays. We can talk about the accomplishment culture later of this, like, I must do everything myself and I must do it perfectly. No, ask for help, ask a neighbor. Play dates. I don't know about you guys, but I'm hearing from my clients, those aren't things anymore. Yeah, I see some people shaking their heads. Let's get your groups behind you. If, Johnny can do pickup on Mondays and Sally can do drop off on Tuesdays, we have to be reaching out to the network of supports. There's about 500,000 other things that I could say, but I want to keep time limited. The other thing that I want to bring up, just so you guys can reflect on this if you are in a spousal partnership, is that the recommendation is that we should be connecting with our partner, not about to-do lists, not about what needs to get done, about just life stuff for 10 minutes a day to foster the most connection with our partner, and at least a 7-second hug or kiss.
It's very specific.
I don't know how they collected that data. Dr. John Gottman, if you're interested, is the one who published that data. But if you guys think about the last time you had a 7-second hug or kiss with your partner, it may help put things into perspective also.
I like that because also you're saying, you know, can we find 10 minutes and 7 seconds a day for quality time with our partner? But that's probably doable, right? Like you're getting, you know, maybe one less, whatever, minute with the kids. Lindsay, anything you want to add on to what Melanie just said?
I think you covered a lot, Melanie, but yeah, just the going back to the village piece, I think outsourcing, I tell parents all the time, if this is especially with like things like homework and stuff, like if this is a battle and it's making life at home feel more stressful, if there's somebody else who could do this with your child, let them be the one to do it with your child. Because that will give you more time to do what is on your own to-do list that is constantly running. And your child will get their homework done or whatever the need is completed, and then you can focus on more quality time. And the other thing that I know is very easy to fall into is what I call a comparison trap. So not comparing yourself, which is very hard, to all of the other people that you think may be doing things better or worse than you. Indeed.
Jen, I want to give you a chance to weigh in on this topic, and I'm thinking, you know, what we're describing here is people doing too much, not having enough time, et cetera. So that creates a lot of guilt and a lot of stress, right? What do you think parents can be doing to reduce our guilt around how we are, you know, like, I'm not doing enough for work, I'm not doing enough for my kids, I'm not doing enough for my partner? Any insights?
No. I am gonna refer to my notes because otherwise I will get lost in the weeds and I don't want you guys to try and follow me through the weeds. But when I was looking at this question, I was thinking that, you know, there is guilt about not spending enough time, not being a good enough parent. But I think there's even more so, I think what that guilt is doing is keeping us from taking care of ourselves. So I think about, you know, on the airplane, the oxygen mask, right? We all know that you put yours on first, then you help your child, because if you're not able to, you know, if you pass out, no one's there for your child. And so that's something that, you know, I think as much as we can keep it in our heads is important. I think all of us who work, or if you don't work out of the house, you're probably volunteering and spending tons of hours, you know, working. I think we all recognize those situations where work has gotten in the way, or spending time with our children. You know, we miss dinner or we miss the game, we're not there for the homework, we go to work when our child's sick. That creates a lot of guilt, I think. I think the norms, you know, the expectation for parenting is sort of in direct conflict with the expectation for professionals. You know, you're supposed to put 150, you know, % into your job, get everything done right, get it done quickly, do more, stay late if you need to. You know, now with cell phones, you know, I'm a dinosaur, so now with cell phones, you know, you're getting called on the weekends, you're getting text messages. And then on the other hand, you're supposed to put 150% of your time into your children and your family. And you know, I'm not great at math, but I don't think I don't think that works. So you know, you have this trait of guilt is just so closely related to stress. I think you start to feel ill-equipped. You might start to feel like you're not doing a good job, and you can kind of see how that cycle is going. So now you're feeling guilty because you're not doing a good job, and you're stressed because you're, you know, feeling guilty. So it becomes this real cyclical sort of situation. I think one of the things that sometimes happens is we feel guilty because we're not spending time with the kids. And then we kind of get this laser focus as to, you know, my identity as a parent. And you get like really like pigeonhole yourself into that one identity until I have to do this right. I have to put more time in. I have to be a parent. I have to parent. I have to parent. I have to parent. And you forget that there's a whole lot more to you. And if you're not feeding those other parts of you, you're not going to be effective. And one thing that when I was thinking about this, I thought that something I never thought of, is that when you do take time for yourself, I think it would be important for it to be really intentional and for you to tell your children what you're doing. You know, it's a teaching moment for them. You know, I mean, if you take, you take the hot bath or whatever, I mean, it doesn't have to be, go to Paris for a weekend. You know, it could be a few minutes, a little time reading, a hot bath, walk the dog, and killing two birds with one stone. But if you tell your children, boy, I'm just, there's a lot. I'm overbooked. I want to relax so I can spend relaxed time with you. I'm gonna go take a bath. It helps me. I think that's something we don't, the kids don't know. They don't know that. And I think it was mentioned too, peer support. Talk. I think it's important to talk to each other. I think instead of feeling isolated, the more you talk and the more you know other people are in the same boat, the less guilty you feel about it. I did bring
counteracts that FOMO.
Yes.
Sorry, Stephen's talking about.
Yeah. I did bring it, it's on the back table, the parental burnout assessment. So, I mean, it's interesting to take. I think what it would do is, it might give you an idea of, the level of burnout you might be feeling. It also can give you an idea of like what categories, sort of, what are the areas where you're feeling the most stress. I think if you can identify that, to me, that might help and, okay, I can address this, it's more concrete now, so.
Thanks, Jen. So we were focusing kind of on the time demands on all of us and sort of unrealistic situation we're in today. I want to talk a little bit about special parenting challenges. So moving on to this topic, around 20% of youth have a special health need. So that could be a developmental, a behavioral, emotional, or physical health need, right? Really common. I think Lindsay and I both mentioned that our kids had IEPs, which means they were in that category somewhere. So starting with John, can you talk about how a child's special needs affect their parents and vice versa?
Yeah, it's more exhausting, it's heavier, it's harder, period, right? I mean, I'm not even joking. I guess the biggest, other than all the negatives that go along with that, right, the struggles associated, there are a ton of resources available. And I think, private and public resources, right, kind of across the board. And it's terrible that it takes hiring an educational lawyer or advocate to even know that those exist, separate issue. But those aren't out there, right? And if I would encourage anyone or anyone that knows someone that's struggling with anything like that is that, right? There are a ton of resources out there available. But from what that looks like on a day-to-day basis, of course, it's subjective and based on what diagnoses we're talking about and what issues are applicable in the situation. But that's where the time, the tribe that everyone's talking about, right, really comes into play. To lighten the burden as much as humanly possible for yourself as a parent, to the oxygen mask analogy, which I absolutely love. Take care of yourself so that you can take care of the people around you, right? Especially if you're in a circumstance like that.
And I think, another piece of it is you might have to let go of whatever your vision was of how things were going to be in your family. And there's a new reality, right? Jen, as a former special ed teacher for a long time, you want to add on to that? And I'll just point out, I'm noticing it's already 7:30, so let's kind of all kind of.
I was going to do that. So I'm not going to even look at my notes. Let's see what happens. Okay. Yeah, I think there is kind of a mourning period. that parents go through and other family members might go through. I guess I would speak to, and I think that has to happen, which is okay. But I guess I would speak to looking, it's hard not to be focused on the difficulties your child's having. It's hard not to want to smooth the way. I think we just have to be really cognizant of what is supportive and then what's holding them back. As a special educator, I loved my students so much and the parents. But it would sort of break my heart when a parent would come in and they would want every single accommodation or, everything off the list. And I would think, first off, it's not possible, to be honest, but also it's just a disservice to the child. And I think, they're forgetting to look at the strengths and build on the strengths and appreciate the strengths, and give the child time to, see, I should look at my notes. Give the child time to grow and become empowered and feel good about themselves.
Beautiful.
I was in the weeds.
That's beautiful. So Melanie, you focus, as you said before, like you've got to focus on childhood anxiety and talk to us about what it does to the family dynamic and also about space.
Sure, yes, I will try and keep it short, but I will plug if you had some cookies, my business card is in the pack. This is something I could talk about ad nauseum. You get so tired of me, but if you, I don't know, are a glutton for punishment, email me. I'd love to talk about this. But when we have a child who is anxious, right? We already said before, it affects the whole family system. Specifically speaking, and I don't know why it happens this way. I'm not on the research side of the psychology. I'm on the talk about it side of psychology. Let the experts do their thing. We tend to have one parent who leans in and one parent who takes the what I call tough love approach. And what that does is it actually perpetuates the anxiety in the child. And what I mean by that is I was an anxious kid. I would probably, if I was in school today, I would have an IEP and I was in the nurse's office saying, "Mommy, my tummy hurts, come pick me up." And my mom leaned in, "Oh my God, baby, I'm on my way." And my mom would be there. Whereas my dad would be like, "Yeah, your stomach hurts, go back to class." Right? So then we have conflict in the parental system. Oh, you're coddling, you're not being nurturing enough. That creates conflict. And what I'm seeing a lot too now these days is in multi-sibling families, the other sibling is like, "Hey, what about me? How come so-and-so gets all the attention? How come so-and-so gets to leave school early?" And so now there's sibling conflict. So it really is, when I say it affects the system, I'm speaking in terms of the family system. It's a multi-systemic problem. I personally like to always have parenting coaching sessions when I'm treating a child of anxiety. I did study with, if you're familiar, Dr. Leibowitz at the Yale Child Studies Center. He has a model of treatment. It's called SPACE. There's a bunch of resources out there, but it stands for, oh boy, pop quiz, Supportive Parenting of Anxious Childhood Emotions. And so it's a very interesting program because the child is the patient, but the parents are the ones who attend the sessions. So it's a model that supports the parents on how to help their child without accommodating the anxiety. When I was offered to train in this model, I was skeptical. I was like, yeah, okay, but I need the CEs, which is continuing education, so I'll do it. And I was floored by the effects that I saw of how we can actually lower childhood anxiety without ever having to see the child. So we do have, I think Margaret put out our sign up to be on our email blast. I am hopefully going to start a space group at Positive Directions in the winter. So if that is something that you have interest in, sign up on the paper, and when we get it up and running, I will email blast you all.
remember I told you this, Ellen, but I remember the New York Times wrote a whole article about the space model a couple of years ago, and I was just, I loved it so much because as a parent of a kid with special ed, in special ed, like there is that, you want to accommodate your kid. You're trying to like ease their way, and it's something like that everyone else in the world isn't going to do that. So we're creating this weird dynamic at home, doesn't match outside. Also, you're teaching your kid that like you are the recipient of all these special services, and their message that they take away is something's wrong with me. So how great is it to work through with parents instead of the kid in that state, right? And the other thing I was mentioning is that like space is really for little kids, right? Primarily, and the little kids who have anxiety, that's like the first mental health issue that comes up around age 7. And then untreated leads to sort of depression and other mental health challenges that emerge in like the middle school years. And those are also the kids on the prevention side that we see are more likely to start using substances early as this like self-medication. So if you can treat early, you can help a lot. I'm going to move on to the next question because of time. So let's talk about a different challenge for some parents, which is the sandwich generation that Liz talked about before. So about a quarter of Americans have a parent over age 65, as well as a kid under age 18, to whom they are providing emotional and financial support, and they're also working, right? So that's a lot of us. And if either the parent or the kid has special needs, now things get like super challenging. I'm watching this happen to my niece right now, it's like a nightmare. So Liz, I'm just gonna flip this question over to just you so we can have another kind of wrap up question or so at the end. But what can you share about the tough parts and are there benefits? And then I know you put together resources.
Yes, I have a resource list and I actually have a book that is from the library called Generation Care. How many people are in the sandwich generation? Okay, so quite a few of us. I think there's an overwhelming theme tonight about just having a village. It takes a village to raise children, but it really takes a village to care for someone that's sick or our aging population. I think a few other themes is self-care. I think when you're a caregiver, you're giving so much to other people that there's a huge rate of burnout. And also finding maybe a support group. Generation Care has a Facebook page with tons of resources and potentially a therapist to kind of walk you through some family issues that sort of bubble up when you're in a healthcare crisis. I guess a main takeaway for me would be if you do have an elderly parent, kind of figuring out a plan of care. What is it that they're looking for? What is it that they're expecting? And as a caregiver, what can you give back? You may not be able to meet all of those demands. Another quick list of things would be getting your elderly parents like a little tech savvy. Maybe having your high school son sit down with a grandfather and try to learn how to communicate on an iPad or learn how to download an app for groceries or CVS just to kind of free up the caregiver and their time. And I have a quick list in the back that if anyone has questions, we can go over. So yeah, caregiving is really difficult. We need a village. Most of us don't really have that anymore. People are living far away from one another, so our family systems have changed too, which makes it really difficult.
The plus side is if your sandwich generation is all local, then you are part of the village, right? You don't have to older parent needs certain kinds of help, like how can they help with the kids, you know? And so it says people, sandwich generation actually have lower levels of stress compared to other people, even if they have some of those like they might have some specific stresses that others don't have, but they also feel like their parents understand them and see them and know what they're going through. And when you lose your parents, then it's done, right?
I have to really agree with that because I have a mom who just retired after caring for my grandparents, and she'll help me with rides with the kids, and she'll point blank tell me that all the activities we're sending them to, she's like, this is too much for them. He's exhausted. He still has hours worth of homework. So sometimes their advice is, she's point out.
The reality check. That's good.
Yeah.
I want to make sure, so let me look at the clock here and it's 7:40. If we talk for maybe 5 more minutes up here, would that give us enough time to open up for a Q&A? Because I know I said at the beginning, our format is we're here till 8:30 anyway. So does that work? Because we have a couple more topics. Okay. So let's turn our attention to the sort of societal and cultural pressures and expectations that we have as a society today, and also especially here in Westport, which is a very special culture. So we've been talking about pressures within families, now we're talking about pressures outside the family. Westport has that achievement focus that Lindsay referred to. You know, Jennifer Wallace was here last year, talking about her book, Never Enough. There's a lot of pressure on both kids and adults that we're all supposed to perform at the highest level. Starting with Lindsay, what advice do you have for parents who don't want to buy into the achievement culture?
Well, in a word, don't. To elaborate on that, I will say, so I was telling the rest of the panel earlier that about 6 years ago, which was the fall of 2019, so this was right before COVID, a colleague of mine and I gave a talk at Town Hall about childhood anxiety. It was geared toward elementary kids, and the topic was supposed to be at one of the elementary schools, but it was such a popular and heated topic that it ended up being, we had to move the event into Town Hall to accommodate the number of people who really wanted to be able to share their own experiences about this and hear what we had to say. And the impact that we observed, you know, being the presenters among the parents who were in the audience was really significant. And it was really powerful to me to see how much parents do not want to put this pressure on their kids. So, I mean, it was literally, there was one point where one dad was like, well, let's just go up to the Board of Ed now and talk about how we need to reduce the pressure on our kids. I don't think that actually happened, but fast forward 6 months and the world shuts down. So all of the kids that I was seeing in my practice at that time for anxiety and feeling overwhelmed by all of the demands on their schedule and feeling overscheduled and having all these things they have to do with the intention of getting to college. When I asked them how they were doing, they were suddenly great. Nothing was going, everything was canceled. They couldn't go anywhere. They were showing up for their online classes, and that was it. They, you know, they weren't being shuttled and making sure they, you know, got the car at the right time to beat the traffic, to get there for this and then that, you know. And I think we could all relate to like, oh, well, that clearly didn't like stick because we're all back to, oh my gosh, what time can we leave? And, you know, I gave the example of earlier with my own household this evening. So, you know, I think it really is it has to be a conscious decision among us parents. And I will also say that I fully appreciate the pressure that we feel to, you know, keep up with everybody else. So it really does take, you know, it's, you know, I know like the phone issue is a big topic here. And it's really like, if you can find at least one other parent who says, you know what, we're not going to buy into this, that is power. And then you maybe can find another parent who's like, you know what, I kind of think you're right. And then I think momentum can build from there. And maybe there will be a tipping point. I don't know, but it would be amazing if it were. But I really encourage, you know, for your kids' own best interests and your own, it's okay to say, I'm not buying into this.
It's tough, but you know, Jen, I don't have anything to add on to that. I mean, and you also see how the kids feel at school about all this.
Yeah, I would say that the vast majority of the students I see because of anxiety. And of those kids, the biggest driving force of that anxiety is this need to overachieve and the academics. And it's not, you know, not even necessarily because parents are saying you have to get an A, you have to get an A. It's, you know, it's what their impressions are and what they're assuming from their impressions. I do agree that, you know, to do it on your own, you know, to say, you know, we're not having all these activities where that's tough. So, you know, if you can, you know, having a group social connections, like at Staples, they have these school climate committee. QR codes in the back if you're interested. They have podcasts, really cool. But it's parents, students, staff. I'm on that committee, and one of the pushes this year is to try and push a collaborative mindset as opposed to a competitive mindset. So, you know, like the first thing we're talking about doing is very simply sort of a bulletin board, you know, reaching out to kids, what works for you, you know, what are the strategies you use that work, you know, how do you study this and that, and sharing that. So it's not, you know, so the kids are supporting each other. But yeah, that's kind of, I won't keep going.
Well, sort of the other side of that question, so that was, you know, what about the parents when they don't want to buy into the achievement culture? Let's think about when you have kids who either don't, they're the ones who don't want to opt in or they can't, right? Like they can't compete with everyone else is starting a nonprofit and, you know, has like a big 5.0 GPA and they're on 6 teams and some kids can't do that. And, you know, how can parents who they themselves may have had other expectations for their kids, how can we support our kids in this environment to thrive? Let me start with Emily on that.
What I will say is, at least for me, the majority of kids and teens that I'm seeing who have this intense stress and pressure, they are saying that, oh, my parents, they're not forcing me to do this, so really good. But that means we need to dig in a little bit deeper. Where is it coming from? So in terms of what you as parents can do to support a child that's maybe not as high academic achieving, or is what I like to say catastrophizing. If I'm going to be on this test and then I'm going to fail the class and then I'm not going to get into college, I always like to say validation followed by curiosity. So the validation of, wow, that sounds so hard, so stressful. That must be really tough for you. Why do you need to go to an Ivy League school again? And genuine curiosity, right? Because they may have some reason. I had a client in my office the other day say, well, I am going to be a doctor and I have to go to an Ivy League school to be a doctor. And we were able to have a moment of saying, wow, actually, you can go to any old college and start your doctoral studies there. So curiosity and validation, I would say, and maybe even some personal anecdotes. Sometimes in my office, I see that the kids, you know, I got some B's in school and I think I'm doing okay. I challenge them. I'm like, do you think I'm a failure? Because I got some B's in school. So if you as parents, if you want to give them some personal anecdotes of like, yeah, geometry sucked for me too, and I still made it out okay. I think in that culture where everybody's, oh my God, you got a 104 and oh, you're going to, you know, 85 extracurriculars. It's nice for them to hear that it wasn't so easy for everybody else too.
And so, Lindsay, anything to add on to that quickly?
I just want to say that I got a D+ in intro to psychology. Now I'm a doctor. You know, but I do tell that to some of the kids I work with. And I feel like it, you know, it really makes it like, oh, okay, I can be back down on earth and I don't have to be the stratosphere here. The other thing that I was going to say is there is a lot of great comparisons. So we as parents can feel like we're not putting pressure, but the kids will just be in school and hear about things. So it can be helpful to talk to them, you know. So when your friends start talking about like, what did you get on this test? What did you get on this? You know, maybe rehearse some responses that they could say, like, don't worry about it. Like, it doesn't matter. It's only a test or something like that to kind of downplay, you know, the intensity of this one test that really in the long run shouldn't matter that much.
What do you call a doctor that got all C's?
Doctor.
Are you a doctor?
C's.
Because A is E, right? Or if C, then. Well, so I think for a last question for now, I think, before we open up to Q&A, we just were talking about this competition, this achievement culture, et cetera. So let's come back to something that was alluded to before, which is social media. And it fosters such a culture of comparison, right? So it's not just our kids who get fear of missing out, right? Like the FOMO is for everybody. Parents are bombarded with influencer messages about our parenting styles, our lifestyles, what our kids are doing, what our kids aren't doing. I want to start with John because I think you used the word the TikTokification of like all of this. And I guess let me have the question be, what do you find most helpful in your personal life and in working with parents to cope with social media?
I'm almost embarrassed with this one. And I won't start with Russell. Education, I think, is a big one, right? So, Social Network was a documentary, 2020 maybe, around that time. Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation. There's another one too more recently that I can't pull off the top of my head, but that's a phenomenal author on the topic. It's not, I mean, it's doing damage, full stop, right? Actually, I heard someone say, and I really liked it. It was like, when you give your kid a phone, you're not giving them access to the rest of the world. You're giving the rest of the world access to your child. I like control, especially with the kids. We're working on it. I had no intention of, like, I don't know, pre-16, pre-18, them having social media, period. And I want to like give the pass to be a little bit authoritarian about that, right? If you said, yeah, I mean, like you could take a dose of cyanide once a day, and that's probably won't die, but like over time, we wouldn't do it. And the statistics, everything that I've seen, pointing towards it being largely negative, and I would say for the adolescent and young adult population. It's not necessary. It's also what you make it, right? So I open up my Instagram and I've got things that I learn, right? Things that motivate me to do fitness, to learn more about different topics. Your algorithm is what you make it and what you put your attention on, right? So like pay attention to what you're feeding yourself, and you can change it, right? Watch a bunch of dog videos on Instagram, just search it, watch what happens. You'll start getting that. I guarantee. So like what? You'll start getting ads for PetSmart, right? Dog videos and cat videos and goat videos, maybe. It's not necessary, and it's what you make it. Like those are the two biggest things.
I was very passionate, and I think I just really appreciate that. Liz, do you have any thoughts on this topic as a parent?
So
Or any person?
yeah, it's really hard having teenagers with social media. I think it also really depends upon the child. They will be attracted to certain things. Some children aren't as social media forward, but someone just explained to me, at least for teenagers at Causeways, about the dopamine effect of being on social media. And he explained to us that there's good dopamine, which consists of being healthy, eating well, sleeping, drinking water, and exercising. And he's like, and then there's cheap dopamine, and that's social media, video games, the quick hits of dopamine. And you're going to want to take a break from the cheap dopamine and really fill your body with the good dopamine. So for teenagers, you're thinking about health, and I think that was the first time it was explained to me where like social media is hard for these kids.
Yeah.
So that would be, I mean, I have a whole list of social media all day, but that one was the most meaningful.
I think that term cheap dopamine is, I don't know, that really resonates with me. I think.
Can I add one little thing? I think though, we have to think about our habits too. I mean, we've all been to restaurants and you see families sitting there waiting for the food and everybody's, on their phone. And I think, again, we have to sort of intentionally teach our kids how to spend, free time. I went to the Catskills when my son was young. He had a bunch of friends. They had never played and, I took them out in the woods. I said, you guys are Indians. I also took them to the dollar store and they all bought mallets. No, they bought plungers. And they were in the woods being Indians with plungers, so I didn't look right. But I mean, I literally had to introduce them to that, but I think we do have to look at what we're modeling and teach them what else they could be doing.
And the other thing with cell phones, which is, you know, the media is, I think it's also a way to escape the realities of like, you know, when you're a teen, you're supposed to be learning new skills and it's uncomfortable to start to talk to the opposite sex or somebody you have a crush on. Or like to just handle all those pressures of middle school and high school. And all of us had to deal with it, right? We all had to learn to do things that we're not comfortable with because that's part of growing up. But if you can just like hide behind your phone, I think the most heartbreaking thing I'll see if I go into a school sometimes at lunchtime is there'll be tables with one kid sitting there alone. So this kid isn't a friend to sit with, right? And what are they doing? They're looking really busy on their phone because it's self-protection. I look too busy for anyone to approach me. But, and that's true. And also no one's going to approach you because you're busy on your phone, right? And so there's just so many things to talk about. So we're going to stop at the panel right now and just open it up to you all. You know, what do you want to hear more about? You know, you've heard different perspectives. Like, do you want to just ask questions or share your experiences? So raise your hand and we'll just take it from here.
I've got a question about anxiety and trauma. And to me, trauma is really just an overreaction, an outside reaction to the situation that's in front of them based on a past experience that, you know, obviously makes the current experience feel outsizely uncomfortable. How to help detune that? How to decouple that thing in front of you from the things in the past?
I feel like you're looking at Melanie, so Melanie, if you want to take it, we can
Repeat the question, please. I might.
So the question was about decoupling anxiety and trauma. Sorry, you got it.
You start.
Lindsay.
I think that's a very, it's a question that I think requires a very lengthy response. And you know, they're very different parts of the brain that are responding. So I think the short answer is it would require long-term treatment.
And what
In my
would be the
opinion.
best kind of treatment for, say, a late teen?
I would look into EMDR, which is pop quiz again, eye movement
Desensitization.
Thank you. I always forget the D there. But it has to do with eye movement, but it doesn't have to be just eye movement, but I do think it is a very effective treatment for trauma.
Questions or comments? Yes, sir.
So the first is sort of around the idea of schedule. I feel like as a kid, we didn't have all these options that we have today. So the schedule doesn't feel like achievement to me. It feels like a response to all these options that I don't want to have happen. So I'm not sure if my motivation is actually well thought out in that, because I'm just like thrown into it, and especially walking into like other people's homes and like what's allowed, free time, downtime, unsupervised parenting, that sort of thing. I don't know. So it's more a comment, and the question is like, now, what are we supposed to do as parents when we have sort of this intuition that your child's spending all day on Roblox? It's probably not a good thing. And as you said, giving your child a digital device is really an access key to them directly.
Specifically, actually with Roblox. I don't know if you're.
Oh, I am very aware. Unfortunately, I am. Yeah. So I'm just so like risk averse because I work in technology and I understand how easy things are to get into people's systems. So not to say I know the skills, but just to say that I understand the fundamentals. So that's, I guess, my first thing. Just hearing the scheduling, I'm like, I just want him to be involved in things that are going to enrich his overall experience, but not overscheduled to the extent. So I guess there's a follow-up question. So what do you do when they do have downtime, but all they really want to do is go to those things because the peers that they have around them are sort of, that's all they do. And the parents don't seem to really mind or don't understand maybe the deeper implications long term. Sure.
Yeah. There are organized activities out there, right? And I mean, if the question is like, how do I get my kid off of being on an iPad or on a video game console or something like that?
It's more like we time block it, but it's like, how do we make other stuff more appealing? Really spice up all the real stuff that is the physical world.
So I'm going to use myself as an example in this one. Actually, my wife and I both. Our daughter, who's 5, she dances and she does jujitsu. I do jujitsu. My wife danced until she was 18, right? So like she's seen videos of mom on stage doing her solo or tap solo or whatever, right? She's been in the gym with me since she was in a carrier, right? So like she's coming up around it. I mean, not to say that anything's too late, but there's like it's an opportunity, I think, right, for some kind of connection, right? Some kind of long-term connection, whether that's fishing, right, or doing, going out to the park and playing disc golf every once in a while, whatever it is. But I think they don't have an option really, right, at the bottom, at the end of the day. So taking them to go do something that's enjoyable, that would be something that you would see as more appropriate or worth the time or enriching, right? I think is their use. Do it together.
So modeling.
Yeah.
And making it quality time too, right? Because then the part of it, I was thinking when you were saying that there's a website on naturalhub.org and it's really trying to let people explore like what gives you that high versus the substance, right? But like maybe part of the natural high might just be and love spending time with my dad and we're exploring X, Y, or Z. It's not cute hands, so you first and then you agree.
Thanks. Yeah, I love that response. That's kind of sort of my focus is more my relationship with my children. I think you kind of it's all inherent in everything you guys are saying, but that seems to be my biggest keeps me up at night now that I have twins that just started high school. And I can't even tell you seeing that transition from elementary to middle was like, whoa, and now I'm going through that. Because they're also exposed to older kids and everything. So I have 9th graders and then I have an 8-year-old. So very different issues. But my thing is pushing them away with my feedback and my ability to sort of be engaged. All of the studies, everything I share with them, it's I don't know what I'm talking about. And they know best, right? I mean, that's the issue.
Hopefully appropriate developmental.
But it's so right.
As a parent.
And I've been a very transparent parent for most of their lives. So I've always been good at them knowing they can come to me and they're very honest. But I don't want to exploit that because they're sharing some very disconcerting things about high school already. And apparently there's a bathroom that it's just known that kids all do drugs at that bathroom. It's and so then I'm starting to really unravel because I appreciate their sharing, but then there's this line of I'm going to look into this climate because it's we're the other parents and teachers and security and it's just a lot. And I feel alone in caring and they think that I'm a fuddy-duddy and all this stuff, and I'm the least fuddy-duddy of yeah. So anyhow, I guess boiling it down to just how do we talk to our kids without pushing them away? I will say one thing that really stood out to them from that middle school to high school transition was the independence that they feel immediately. It took away all that pressure. I wish that some of the middle schools would take on that same level of we trust you, or even the lunch waves are they vary, so they don't have that pressure. They have to have a lunch group. This takes I can just tell they're at ease, but it brings on new things. And I will say, I think I am alone in this. is there's no dress code and the things that girls want to wear. And it's like, already I've upset my daughter just because I'll say, please don't wear that. And she thinks I'm shaming her body and all this. And so already I'm sort of digging a hole for myself, and we just started school. So, loaded question, but yeah, some advice on just sort of how to keep your kids trusting you and feel safe, but also letting them know that you trust them.
So I think it looks like Lucy's ready to go with some advice for that, but I can someone, because you said I feel like I'm the only one. So can we tell this mom, like, is everyone is on this? We've all been there.
I'm just gonna say, I'm so glad that I'm not a ninth grade girl right now, because I would not just my own stuff, you know, that, but, well, I think number one, I think it's really a testament to their trust in you that they told you about this bathroom. Because obviously they're not like, well, don't tell mom because we want to go hang out there. You know, they're gonna tell you things that are like, this is kind of weird. And I think, you know, when those things get, first of all, I think taking a more passive approach and not being like, I need to tell you all these things that are gonna happen, or this is really scary, or you need to tell me about your day. That will automatically, no matter what age your child is, they're not gonna touch stuff. So really leaving it up to them. You know, I have a, you know, I tell parents all the time, you know, don't ask how their day was. And I know that it sounds so bizarre, because it's fine. It's fine. Don't you ever like explaining stuff? This is what I hear in my own household about this. So yeah, it's good. So, but when they tell you that kind of stuff, I would say, you know, ask them like, well, what do you think about that? You know, or what is that like? What do you think that means? Or, you know, and that just gives them the space to talk more about it. So it's, you know, and it leaves it up to them, whereas you're not imposing your own opinions on, you know, they know what you think, you know. So asking them what their thoughts are, you know, I think can help them feel like, okay, mom's not going to judge me for being curious about this. But, you know, I think approaching what they're bringing to you with curiosity as opposed to judgment is a huge way to approach things.
It's tough because it's our own anxiety, right? Like you hear the stuff and then you want to be like, well, what about this and what about that? And then they go back away, right? So I like that. It's like the curiosity validation and let them talk about it and then maybe they come back.
Yes, I would also like to add, I am familiar with the student bathroom. Yes, we all know about the student bathroom, and all the kids that are in the bathroom, they're on our couch and they're court appointed substance use.
Okay, so should we start at the root then? Okay, if that's just my, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then just to add on, I know we mentioned it before, but developmentally where your twins are right now, the fact that they are, you know, pushing away from you a little bit and, you know, experimenting with their clothes and what they're wearing, that's all normal. And it shows, again, they came to you and told you about the bathroom rather than, oh, they're going and they're saying, oh, what do you got in there? And you're here also. So it shows that you're really showing up and you're caring for your kids. And then, oh, I had one other thing and now, oh, the weeds, I'm in the weeds now. It'll come to me later. Oh, it's back.
Yeah.
I will say you seem very cool and kids appreciate that. And I think if you can make almost like a pact with your twins who are going to high school and maybe exploring some new things, if you start hey, if you call me, no matter what time it is, where you are, and you don't feel safe, or the other kids are doing something and I'm not about it, I will come get you, or a family member will come get you, no questions asked. Because at least from what I hear when they're on my couch is they're so scared they're gonna get yelled at, and then they're in a scary situation. Yeah, so.
And kind of have like a code name or something, right? Yeah, because my kids have that, so.
Exactly. In terms of getting out of those risky situations, I think that exit code is like the message to your kid. It's not just like we'll come get you anytime, but we'll give you an excuse to get out of that, right? So it's like you text me the letter X for exit or something from a party or who's doing drugs that you don't want to be engaged in. And it's not just that you show up and take them away, but you call them and you go, we have a family emergency. I have to come get you. So the kid isn't the one who like called their parents. Like, right? You had your hand up earlier.
I just wanted to add two things, with the media, so I'm very pro no TV or screens. Like throughout the week, they don't watch at all. And I have young kids, but I didn't even present. I have 3 kids, ages 2, 5, and 7. And I'm seeing a lot where they're picking up at school, where obviously a lot of the kids watch media. And my kids come home with like new things and they feel left out. And I feel like I don't know what to do because I don't want to expose them to that. But then at the same time, I don't want them to feel left out or not gain, like my husband and I are a little bit different views on this. My husband loves playing video games. Now he doesn't have the time anymore, but he's always like, oh, I want my son to play, my 7-year-old. And I'm like, no, he's too young. That's still screen time. And he's like, no, but like maybe Super Mario, something that's more, less, whatever, no guns or anything like that, violence, but it's still video games. And I'm like, no. And then he's like, oh, but that helps with technology because our world is all about technology and going into that. And he's going to go into like high school and everybody's going to be so advanced in computers and technology and games. And our son's going to be so behind. And I'm like, so we're conflicted. So I don't know how to approach that.
And there is.
I feel like you're video game guy over here.
What's that? You re-asked the first question, please. There was something in
So
there.
basically, feeling left out because I'm very pro no media or
Yeah.
screens, and they actually maybe get an hour a week, maybe, if that, I don't know, 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, honestly, so.
I mean, they're still young, so I think maybe it's more controllable.
Yeah, this is the left out part, right, which I wanna highlight here. You're being left out of the statistics that are bringing us all here today, quite honestly. And the kids are as well, right? So I think like that is, if there is again, like kind of hall pass for that, I think that's one of the. I mean, on the video game and the things, listen, that's totally, I'm not gonna tell you guys what to do. There's pros and cons, right? I mean, similar to hobbies, right? Like there is a next generation of coders, AI implementers, whatever we want, whatever it's gonna end up looking like, right? Like 10 years down the line. Like it's not bad necessarily, right, across the board, but you're managing it well and you're doing the right things, right? So if some of that screen time is hopping on blocks and crushing mushrooms or whatever, like they'll be all right, I promise.
I have one thing to add to that. With one of my children, he only plays video games that are like sports related, and we don't let it go beyond like the web. So he's not competing against people, and people aren't like, spying in. So it's more sport related. I don't know if that makes it better, but you're playing with guns.
Not all
and
video
you're-
games are the same.
Yeah, and you're not interacting with people like.
Yeah, there's a class,
Yeah.
different profits as we things. It's
I
important.
think it's also worked like with all the media, how everything is like rated Y7 or Y13 or whatever the media are. And I found when my kids were little that those things were spot on. Like if my kid was exposed to a movie that was like Y7 when they were Y5 because their older brother did, like it was sort of disturbing or confusing, like he wasn't ready for it. So what was also helpful about that was teaching the kids their letters and their numbers and being like, sorry, you're not Y7. Seriously, right? And it's like, here's our rule. And the other thing I was thinking when you were saying that, I mean, I was a kid like a million years ago when I was growing up, when my parents didn't let me watch TV more than like a half hour a week or something ridiculous. And I turned out okay, and I think we all do. And one thing you can do is just like be more fun than those kids who are watching, who are playing the games. You're just like, oh, your friends were like playing Roblox or Minecraft or whatever. But when your friends come to our house, we make s'mores and we go hiking and everybody wants to be at our house. You in the blue shirt and then You over here belong here.
First of all, thank you everybody for all your thoughts. This has been great. One thing we didn't talk too much about is like how different kids are. And that makes it really hard when you're giving or consuming advice from other parents, but it's also very challenging when you have two children that are very different from each other in terms of how you go about it. And it relates to, I think, you know, what you guys are both talking about. It's a great, we all, I think, when we start as parents have this framework of we're gonna keep our lid on this kind of activity and we're gonna not let them do this activity. And then over time, you know, we get worn down, right, from a number of things. And it really relates right to the topic of today, which is we have pressures, we're trying to navigate challenges and balances. And eventually it's like one more thing we're fighting against. Oh my God, like they want this, they need this, they're telling me how much their life is terrible. And do I have the energy and the time to fight that battle versus the 9 other things I have to deal with? So we all make those trade-off decisions, and some of them are probably the wrong decision, but we do it anyhow. But what I've found, you know, and I've played video games and I've played this and probably some I shouldn't have, that one of my children, it was easy for me to get them to do something healthy, to go out by modeling the behavior and get them to do fun things. And the other one was really, really hard. And, you know, then it's like, you have to learn a new trick. And maybe I didn't do that so well. And so I don't know what the question is here, except for maybe how, if there's any solution to dealing with children that are so different, you know, as we're trying to solve all these problems as parents.
I feel that because my 2 kids who are 18 months and 19 months apart, and they're boys, and if one goes right, one goes left, right? If they've never been on the same page their entire lives, in the first 5 years of their life, the older one didn't even want to be in the room with his baby brother. Like, no, but I mean, literally. And like when they were like, you know, 2 months old and 2 years old, you can't leave them alone. I mean, it was a nightmare. So I'm just saying, I feel that I don't know a solution. Who has a solution for that? I mean, well, no, I think maybe it's also the village part, right? So it is like, you know, what can you trade off? So it's like today's mom stay with this kid and dad stay with that kid. Who resonates with this kid, and you like organize like that grandparent is doing something with them, but it's tough. I will say my kids are now friends with each other. They're both in college. They call each other. It's nice.
Well, I was gonna say that I think I thought about your question in a sort of a different way, but I have 2 kids who are very different. My older one needs a lot of like, if you don't stop doing this now, this is gonna be a horrible thing that happens to you. And then my younger one is a ball of anxiety. So when my younger one hears this horrible thing that's gonna happen to him, he's like, wait, mom, what? What? So I then have to take him aside and say, listen, your brother needs to hear this. This is not gonna, and he gets it. So some of that has to happen. And I do think, yeah, sometimes you have to divide and conquer or divide and keep the peace because, you know, like one parent takes, and that is definitely not always possible. So a lot of it is finding whatever common ground they have and, you know, really trying to capitalize on that whenever you can. And the other thing that I was gonna say before regarding the social media piece is we as parents, you know, I mean, I follow a lot of influencers that are, you know, parenting specialists or experts and stuff, and they all drive me crazy because they are. Thank you for appreciating. I will stay off my soapbox about her, about Dr. Becky, but that's a whole other thing. There's so much information out there and it's all guided us. This is the way. This is how you're supposed to raise your kid. This is it. And I think every parent here can see like you have one or more kids in your house who, you know, are so different from each other, from you, from your partner. You know, there is no one size fits all way. So, you know, and we're all up here as professionals and we don't relate to this, just, you know, why we're here. So, you are totally not in this alone. Yeah. Yeah.
So Dr. Becky Hader.
Hey, it just give me anxiety. I know a lot of parents really appreciate that. Yes, I have a 7-year-old. Also,
echoing you, your kid is not weird. My kid does not know Minecraft or anything, not even Star Wars. She does not know any of those.
And she's a sheep.
I mean, she watches weird things, not that, like bugs or like like
Nat Geo, those guys.
like a Japanese, those Miyazaki movies, like kids 7-year-old does not watch, but yeah, it's fun. I think they will feel better, like they think they are like higher. So anyway, so I have a question. Also like I feel like it's really hard. I really appreciate this event when I found out. I'm really appreciate. Wow, thank you. It's so hard to find a village. You know, people. I have like I only have one kid, so I'm at the lowest level of talking to people because I have to be begging for play dates or whatever, which is really shouldn't be this way, but. So I really appreciate this event, like everybody gets here. And also I really feel like we are fighting with it's like a never than ever like a situation, an era. It's like we're fighting with the internet, everything. Like always we're fighting for the attention. Like they are trying to get attention from our kids. Like also like, I feel like parents are also like very anxious just from whatever around us. So it's really hard to have a very like authentic or unique like manner to be in the household, to be with partner or care. Okay, anyway, so I want to say it's hard. So I'm glad that it's not like I'm not the only one suffering. So it's kind of bad mindset, but it's also kind of feel like, you know, when you see someone else is also like going through this, you don't feel like alone in that way. That's what I'm trying to say. Not like I want anyone to suffer. So back to my question. So I my daughter did I think she really had a hard time in first grade. And then so we did take her to see a therapist. And then we didn't test her because she's academically too good to be tested at school setting apparently. So I guess, I mean, now she's in second grade. She's like stronger, sassier. I don't know why, but and then she's very sarcastic. She'll look at me and say, "Mommy, your phone must be tired."
She sounds very smart.
I mean, never heard about that perspective. Like, I feel bad for my phone, but anyways. So I guess my question, because I heard one thing you mentioned, like a 7-year-old, the kids will start have anxiety, but later on they may develop like depression or other things. So I guess I'm just wondering if I should like test her so we can learn better like who she is in certain ways. Because sometimes I kind of feel like I imagine who she is, or I imagine who she should be. But I don't see in a professional way, like also my husband mentioning is like, I mean, he hates everyone say, oh, that kid have ADHD or autism. He hates people say those kids are on the spectrum because he said, everybody is on the spectrum. So I don't know do you think it's a good idea to, you know, not into like diagnose her with anything because, you know, other than being sarcastic or.
Which sounds pretty awesome. It sounds like a cool kid. I'm gonna let our testing expert here answer your question.
Get her tested. You know, it can't hurt. You get a lot of information at age 7. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I literally, my first job out of grad school was testing infants and toddlers. So you can test at any age. But if you have a concern, and it's tricky because oftentimes the school is like, your kid's fine, their grades are okay.
Yeah.
But there's so much going on.
Like listen to your mom gut.
Yeah.
Because when you test a child, you just learn about their learning profile. Like how can you just listen to your mom gut. And like if you do test and you find more out about their learning profile and how to better support them for all of the good.
Okay.
And then you get answers, how do you support a child? So
Test,
I would do it.
test for what?
And test well.
Just, no.
You can test for anxiety, ADHD, learning issues, depression, any number of.
Do you have to go in and say, I want to test for something, like?
Through the school?
No, the school offered, the school is really nice, they're like, if you want to.
Hey,
I can.
pay for it, let the school do
Yeah. If the school do it, the school cannot diagnose.
Yeah, that's
We're
what they
gonna-
said.
We're gonna get into the weeds here, so. But we can, if you wanna talk, I can stay for 5 more minutes.
Okay, so I also have another question, as a other dad. So, because, so, I don't know, I feel really bad, but I have the guilt. Because I have chronic disease, so basically I can't work a majority of the time, I'm like out. But my husband, I feel really bad for him, he's great, he's like, go to work, come home, like, eat dinner, and then she's with the kid. And then, get her ready for bed, and then put her to bed. And then stay in bed with her, and I mean, he shouldn't be, but oh well. But, and then in the morning, he gets the kid ready, I just need to be at the door, take her to the bus stop. I mean, on weekends, my friends say, I don't even see you, where are you? I was sorry. But I really feel bad for him because I really he's like a burnout. I feel really bad, but we intentionally try to give him time. It didn't seem like he's getting it. I don't understand. Like, is there any way I can help? Certainly.
I would venture to guess, not knowing your husband from Adam, but I would venture to guess that he takes a lot of pride in having the ability to do so, right? And again, I'll speak personally, since it's the only thing I can really speak with confidence on. I mean, that's my goal. Like my daughter driving home from jiu-jitsu before I came here, told her that I was going, I had to go out and I wasn't gonna be able to put her to bed tonight. She's like, oh, that means mom's gonna have to, but it's not that she does anything bad, it's just, she does it wrong, so that's fine. And again, like, I think that's appreciated and certainly something that you and your husband should be communicating about, right? And just if for nothing else, so that he knows it's appreciated, right? And recognize like his effort and the toll that it's taking on him potentially is recognized and appreciated. Also, there's supports out there for him too, right? If he's struggling to find something that actually fills his cup when he does have that free time available, even just that, right? Like, you don't need to be crazy to go there. Like, that's an issue that's addressing.
For him and for you, because you're gonna decide to listen, you're feeling these guilt, so I think.
Yeah, I would have to go, I would go, but I probably should.
So everyone, we have okay, so we have room for one more minute. I'm wondering if we, we could just maybe, I guess we could break and just, those of you who have a question, maybe go to the person that you think would answer your question, because I don't want to abuse the library. And I want to thank Jennifer Keller back there in red for allowing us to put this table together. I want to thank all of our amazing panelists, those Liz, Melanie, Donna, Liz, and Jen. I really appreciate everyone coming out tonight. If you didn't visit the resource tables in the back, please do. I'm also going to mention that at Positive Directions, we have a fundraiser going on right now. If anyone's feeling like I like this and I appreciate it, and it's cool because it's 3 Westporters who are running the New York City Marathon. And so if you're running, you might appreciate that perspective, or if you're into mental health. They're running, and whatever they raise is going to be for Positive Directions, and we have free support groups and free trainings and free things that we do, and we have, we need help to pay for those things.
No, they cut you off. Oh, wow, they were gonna cut you off.
Die.